We are now going to take a look at the different types of business organisations that you can get, so the makeup of the business. And the first two that we are going to spend a bit of time on today is sole traders and partnerships. Sole traders, these are small businesses owned and managed by one person. So for example, maybe a hairdresser's or a plumber's, and they usually sell to their local area. The advantages of this is they are easy and cheap to set up. The owner will get to make all the decisions, and the owner will also get to keep all the profits because you are the boss, you make the decisions. There is no one else that you need to consult with. So it is totally up to you. The disadvantages, however, is it's quite hard to get bank loans. You'll have high interest rates, especially if you're a brand new business and you're a small business, you're just starting out. The bank will want to make sure they earn their money back from you. You also have unlimited liability. Now you'll hear this quite a lot throughout this next topic. This means that the owner could lose all their personal possessions, their house, their car, etc., if the business fails. Because if they need to pay back money to cover a debt or to cover a loan, once they start to run out of money, they're going to have to start selling what they own. So like it says on the slide, their house, their car. And you'll also have to work really long hours. If you are the sole owner of the business, you have to make sure that all the hours are worked. You can't just take holidays, because if you take a holiday, then that means that you aren't earning any money. So you have to be really careful with how you are going to manage your business if you are a sole trader. Next up, we have partnerships. These kind of businesses are owned and controlled by 2 or more people. The maximum amount of people you can have in a partnership is 20. They are mainly used by lawyers and accountants. A lot of the time you will see 2 names which are surnames of a business. For example, a lot of real estate agents use this as well. So the Falkirk real estate agent Gear and Gibson, that is a partnership because it is the 2 owners' last names. Partners sign a partnership agreement which states how, for example, profits will be shared between the partners. And they will also be signing up to how the work involved in running the business can be shared. Will someone be in charge of one part? Will someone, if somebody's in charge of the finance, does somebody take charge of the marketing? Partners usually specialise in certain areas of business. So if it's a lawyer's, they will usually be concentrating more on just family law or criminal law. Not a lot of places do a bit of everything. They usually specialise in one certain area. And if you sign up to a partnership agreement, there's more capital available since the money is invested by each partner. It's not just one person's savings or loan that's going into it, it's 2 or more. Disadvantages though of being in a partnership is you still have unlimited liability. So you still, if you need to pay back a lot of debt, you could end up having to sell your personal possessions to pay back your debt. You need to share the profit. If there's more than 2 of you who are the owners and the runners of the business, you're going to need to share whatever profit you make. You can also come into disagreements between your partners. Not everybody gets on all of the time. People do disagree, so that could cause a big effect in your business. And partners may leave the business. This might cause problems for the remaining partners if someone who leaves is the one who was in charge of paying their employees' wages and setting up all the financial side of it. And when they leave, you have no expertise in that area. That could cause problems and roll on to problems every day in the business. Now, a sole trader and a partnership are from the private sector of the economy. Private sector organisations are set up and owned by individuals who have invested their own personal money, which we have discussed as capital, in them. So that's exactly what a sole trader and a partnership have done. They are individual people and they have set up their own business using their own capital. They are set up to provide goods and services only to consumers. This is so that businesses can make extra money called profit for the private benefit of their owners. Now, the next sector we are going to look at is the third sector, And in that, you can find charities, social enterprises, and voluntary organisations. The third sector consists of non-government organisations which have been set up to provide goods and services to benefit specific groups that they feel need special assistance. For charities and voluntary organisations, they run not to make a profit, but to raise money for good causes or improve skills. A few examples are listed here: Strathcarron Hospice, Save the Children, Guides, Scouts, all charities or people who volunteer their time to help or teach others. They are run by a board of trustees who make the decisions and carry out daily running of the business, because for all it is a charity, there is still a business element behind it. And usually a charity or a voluntary organisation will have one or more of these as their main aim. They either want to relieve poverty, advance religion, advance education, or to carry out activities that will be beneficial to the community. Now, charities do not make their money by trading and earning profits. They encourage the public to give them money to pay for their work through the use of advertising, fundraising, and this money, which is given by the public, is known as a donation. The next business in the third sector we're going to look at is social enterprises. Businesses are set up to meet a social aim. They provide employment for vulnerable people. They work with homeless people. They will work with young people who have problems or issues. They help the world's poorest people get out of poverty. And they are also aiming to improve the environment. Now, social enterprises are not driven by profit. Any profit made is either used to further the social aim or reinvested in the business. Now, social enterprises are different from charities because they aim to generate their funds through grants. Now, that is money from government agencies that they do not need to pay back. If you receive a grant from a government, you don't need to pay this back. Social enterprises are different from the private sector because they have an asset lock on both their profits and assets. This means that social enterprises must use all of their profits and money from the sale of assets for the purpose of its social mission. Social enterprises must also be run in an ethical manner, so it reflects on their aim to benefit the society. This will be seen through actions such as offering their staff satisfactory wages, terms and conditions, and clear environmental policies. Social enterprises will have volunteer and paid employees who are managed by a board of directors. Now, a few examples of social enterprises are listed here at the bottom: the Big Issue, the Eden Project, local credit unions, and SocialBite. SocialBite is the main social enterprise that we will probably look at during our time in business management. So I suggest you look in or do a bit of research about what SocialBite stands for. Now, we've looked at the private sector and we've looked at the third sector. The last sector of the economy we have to look at is the public sector. Now, public sector organisations are set up and owned by the government. Their main aim is to provide services to the public, and services that the private sector couldn't provide or they wouldn't be able to provide very well. And profit is not always that important with things in the public sector. Examples of things you'll find in the public sector are the NHS, police, and education. Now, the main features of the public sector are they are set up and owned by different levels of government. They are run by paid workers and managers who have their progress checked by members of the government. They are set up to provide goods and services that should improve the quality of life for any member of the public that uses them. Most public sector goods and services are free, and public goods and services are usually free because the money the government needs to provide them is collected through your taxes, and anyone who has a full-time paying job will pay tax on their wages. A public corporation can only be set up by a parliament. A chairperson is appointed by the government to be responsible for running the organisation. So if you want to set up a public corporation that aims to help the government or help the public, it needs to be set up by a member of Parliament, somebody in Westminster. Public corporations include the BBC and the Royal Mail. Public corporations receive grants from the government and also raise finance from the public. So the BBC charges the public a TV licence. So every month or year you pay for your TV licence, and this allows you to watch the BBC channel and use their online services. And the services provided by the government, they usually fall into two different categories, either local government or central government. Local government is the government of counties, authorities and districts throughout the UK. So for example, our local government is Falkirk Council. They run libraries, education, the roads, parks, social services, housing. All of these are run by the Falkirk Council and are set up and controlled through Falkirk. Now, central government is controlled from London. The members of government are members of Parliament, so your MPs, and they are elected by the public to govern the country. And the Prime Minister is in overall charge. However, the rules are slightly different in Scotland, as we will all know from the news lately that Nicola Sturgeon, our current First Minister, she is in charge of many things, such as dictating our education systems here in Scotland, and she can decide differently to the Prime Minister. So, why would you set up a public sector organisation? There are many reasons why the public sector organisation is essential. It can avoid duplication of effort. So if there is a public sector organisation, let's say for example the police, then private firms don't need to set up, and why would you then pay somebody to come and see who broke into your house when you would just phone the police for free? They also provide important but not always profitable services. So the BBC will provide their news channels, radio stations, etc., which are all extremely important today more than ever, but they're not there to make a lot of money. And they also prevent exploitation of consumers. So the Post Office, providing a fair price for postal services throughout the country, is meant to make you want to use them rather than go to private courier firms like DPD and Hermes, because they won't always provide you with the best price. They may come across as being quicker and more efficient, but they can charge you a lot of money. And looking at the other side of the coin, why would you make your company a private company? There are various reasons why the government may decide to privatise a public corporation. To increase efficiency. Some people feel that publicly owned organisations are not as efficient as private ones. If you are going to be paying something out of your own pocket, you would like to think that it will be done quickly and exactly how you want it. To raise funds for the government, selling off private or state-owned corporations provide huge funds, and that means the need to tax and borrow money is reduced. So if you decide to sell off parts of your public owned company to a private organisation, it increases your funds and profits for the government massively. And also to encourage share ownership, to make as many people as possible part of the business world. We want to get as many people out there running businesses and making decisions. So we have looked at private companies, so people who own their own business, sole traders partnerships. We have looked at people in the third sector, for example, charities and voluntary organisations. And we have also looked in the public sector, which are companies run by the government, such as the NHS and the police.